Welcome to Santana True Crime. Tonight we have former undercover police officer Matt Pitcher. If you want to know what it's like going from buying an 8 ball of Coke from strippers to buying 50 kilos of Colombian Bam Bam, you will enjoy the show. Also joining me is co-host, author, historian, and podcaster Allie Siebert. Check out her new show, Allie in the Archives. And Matt,
Awesome.
understand you're retired from buying Coke and you now have a podcast. Can you tell
Yeah,
us about that?
yeah. You can't buy Coke your whole life. At some point, you got to give it up. It just doesn't work. Yeah. So I retired back in 2022, the end of 2022. Um, just being perfectly honest, not by choice. Didn't take care of my mental health, and it came back and bit me physically. Ended up with a really bad lung infection because I hadn't slept literally in 10 years. And hadn't dealt with my anxiety and that kind of thing. So it kind of forced me into an early retirement. But everything kind of works out for a reason. I got myself the help I needed, and I'm now a full-time actor, as crazy as that sounds. And I run a podcast with another actor who's a former firefighter called Undercover Dumpster Fire. You can find it on YouTube or Instagram. Basically, we're a nonprofit, and we talk about trauma, especially related to first responders um, and other victims of crimes and that kind of thing. And not just the trauma itself, but then ways of dealing with it and how to get past, not get past it, but to work through it and to still live a somewhat peaceful life, if you will.
No, that makes sense completely. Can we start back from that first day in the academy? I know with my experience, I was with the Raleigh Police Department, and so we had an in-house academy as well as they do in Charlotte. And you kind of go around, and it's like you're a little kid again. You tell them like what you're going to be when you grow up to be a real police officer. And most guys are either I want to kick doors in, be a SWAT dog, and have a sleeve of tattoos, or it's I want to buy Coke from guys on the street, or investigate murders.
Yeah,
What was
exactly.
your answer to that?
So, like, and even before I started the academy, when you're going through the interview process and all that, they asked me, well, what do you want to do once you get in? And there were three things, two of the three you named. Still young and dumb, I wanted to be SWAT. I've always, since I was a kid, was started as wanting to be kind of like CIA, that kind of thing. The undercover, living a double life, fascinated me. Wanted to do that. That was number one goal. Was to get in vice and narcotics to be able to do that. I also wanted to be a chaplain. They kind of looked at me a little odd when I said the third one, but that was the three passions I had getting into law enforcement.
I've actually not heard that third option given,
Yeah,
so
that's
you'd
the
be the first.
exact same thing they said. But
And I've
that
heard some of your
What
stories, and that's kind of yeah. But go ahead, Allie.
I was gonna ask what drew you to all 3 at the same time.
So I've always had a huge faith in God. My life has never been exactly a normal life. For good or bad, you can look at it either way. I was learning disabled when I was little in second grade. I got in my first real fight in first grade. I saw a kid getting picked on by fifth graders, a fellow first grader, and I thought I could handle the fifth graders no problem. So went over and told him to stop picking on the kid, to pick on me. And as any good first grader would do, I then got my butt kicked royally. Did not win that fight, not even
Good
close.
for you, though.
Uh, it's funny. I still remember that fight. Really wish
I
I'd won
bet.
that one. But then the following year, I wasn't doing well in school. I always joke the first grade I failed was kindergarten. I got to do kindergarten twice. That whole recess thing really threw me off. It just didn't make a
Right.
lot of sense. It's hard. But I had trouble with reading and writing. Basically, they said the nerve in my brain didn't bring it down to pen and paper kind of thing. And I was ADHD, so that was not a really great combination right there. So then I had to start for math. I was in regular classes, but I'd have to go to special classes for the reading and writing. And this is back, well, it was a long time ago, back in the early 80s, and things weren't like they are now, where it's more understood. So I would go to the same classroom as kids with Down syndrome and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And the other kids did not necessarily appreciate me then coming into their classroom later on. So every recess, and I literally pretty much every recess consisted of me getting in a fight. And it took quite some time before I was even able to pull out some victories in any of those fights. So I spent most of elementary school getting my butt kicked. By middle school, that kind of turned around. I found football, fell in love with football, and that kind of guided me and kept me on a straight path. And also, my brain started to function somewhat the way it was supposed to, or at least as good as it's ever going to at that point. Uh, and so I didn't have some of the problems with reading and writing anymore. It got better. It took a heck of a lot of work and a lot of long nights. Thankful for my mom getting me through that. But that kind of got me through school and did all that. And the only reason I was able to actually go into law enforcement. So I developed early on my relationship with God, I guess, in some ways. Sometimes not a good relationship, but always a relationship. And then as I got older, it kind of grew. And I wanted to be a chaplain in a sense of being there to help, especially other officers, when things go horribly wrong and they need to talk to that person and talk about their faith. So that was kind of what drew me into that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I know that you've got a really long and historic career. Is there anything about the academy that was challenging? And for the people that don't know, you did go to Charlotte Meck's Academy, right? Which is in-house, meaning it's run by Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department.
Yeah. And that time it was what they call paramilitary. They tried to run it like a boot camp type thing. So we got yelled at and all that kind of stuff a lot. I did have asthma when I was in the academy. Of course, I couldn't have anything easily. And I was fine up until we got to about the 5-6 mile runs. And then all of a sudden I get this funny sound in my voice, and I did black out more than once. Actually blacked out on one of our instructors. That was really great thing to do. I was really happy about that. But it was nothing too. But like for us, the academy was, like for me especially, it was super important to me because how you did in the academy, they set it up when you graduate from the academy, like because Charlotte had 12 different districts, right? So I wanted to go to David 3. That was the district I wanted. That was considered the busiest, worst district, most violent crime, all of it, most dope. Everything I wanted to work was in that district. So I really wanted to go there. So I wanted to present myself well because all the districts, captains and stuff get a sheet of each recruit, what they're good at, what they're not good at, how they rank compared to everybody else. And then it's basically like an NFL draft at the end of the academy. And so there was one district I didn't want to go to. It was called Baker 2. And that was kind of the upper level, like upper class people live there, that kind of thing. So not as much crime and all that. So I really didn't necessarily want to go there. So I found out I was going to Baker 2. I was really, really, really pleased about that. And then a sergeant from David 3, or the captain, had seen my sheet from the academy, and they actually made a trade to get me to David 3. So I was so happy about that. I actually ended up getting to go. And that was all because obviously, I worked as hard as I could in the academy to at least show that I got something to put out there. So I got to go to David 3, and that paved the way for my career. Had I not gone there, I don't know if I'd have ever gotten to Vice and Narcotics. I did a lot of really dumb things in David 3, but that kind of paid off that I don't ever promote. I did my first undercover buy about 6 months after I finished my FTO training, which is as dumb as it gets. I should have never been allowed to do that.
As someone who doesn't know like the lingo and the world, can you explain that for me
Yeah.
and for other people listening who maybe don't?
So up to this point, every single night I had gone in my full uniform to work. I had created, and you probably remember this, what's called a SARE project, and I do not scan, analyze, I can't remember all that. But basically, I found a problem in the community, and the community was we had a lot of gangbangers on the corners selling dope. This was all just what I wrote up just so I could buy dope. And so I showed it to my sergeant, my one sergeant who I knew would we go for it. And he's like, boom, all right, you can do it. So I actually, two guys that I'd gone through the academy with, I grabbed them, said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And then as soon as I buy the dope, you roll up and take them off. And we're just going to go around and pick off the corners. Perfect. So basically, I dress up in, well, the first time I did it, I was a complete idiot, didn't know what I was doing. So I just wore all baggy clothing and everything else. And I got all these fake earrings and lined up my ear with both ears with fake earrings. Never had my ears pierced up to this point. And still hadn't at this point. But
At this point.
so when I ended up going undercover, first time in my life, I can honestly say I only got my ears pierced for work. I don't think anybody else can say that. But so then I dress up like that, and then I go out, and then there's a whole method to buying dope, right? You go down the corner, you got your UC vehicle, which is just a regular. You try to find a crappy car. Normally, if you're buying street level rocks, you're supposed to be a user, so it wouldn't make any sense to be driving around in a nice car. So you try to find a beat up car. Plus, you really don't want to get robbed. So the crappier car you have, less chance you're getting robbed, and that's a big time goal in this whole thing.
Interesting.
So I would still remember my first buy. I rolled up, I can tell you it was at Pegram and Kennan Street, and guy on the corner. I'd put the window down, I'd drive slow and just look at him hard. He does two fingers up in the air. That's a sign. When they do the two fingers in the air, that means, all right, they can take care of you or they're going to rob you. Circle back around. He comes up to the car, and I was smart enough at least not to say, can I have two crack rocks, please, or anything dumb, or I have some crack cocaine, sir.
Can you give me dope, please?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was hoping to get high. Could you help me with that? Like the big time there was, can I get a 20? Was a normal thing. And then sometimes they'd ask, you want hard, you want soft, you want green. So you had to know all the lingo, which obviously hard is crack, soft is powder cocaine. And I probably should not be teaching anybody this right now. So don't anybody use this against
Everybody
me.
tune in. This is how you do a drug deal. Welcome to the show.
We're probably getting demonetized as we speak right now.
Right, yeah. So when am I coming back on? And then obviously as green as marijuana. And keep in mind too, this was also multi-years ago, so it may be, I know some lingo has changed, all right, and it's also geographical. You say that I think Cali's a lot different actually in their lingo, but every place has their own terminology. So anyway, that was my first buy. Rolled off, and the team came in, took them off, and we did a couple other locations like that. There was a couple times I pretty confident I came real close to getting robbed. That hair starts to get up. I had one. They tried to get me to turn down this driveway, like to pull in, like straight in, so I wouldn't be able to get out. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not planning on getting shot today. So
yeah, no kidding.
So you have that one experience, and obviously, I'm assuming you really enjoyed this, and you want to do more of it. Is the squad that you on? Are they a bunch of go-getters, or is your sergeant on board with this? What's that like for you?
So the sergeant I had at that time, he trying to be polite here. He let us do whatever we want. And that was not necessarily a good thing. I did have other sergeants who were very knowledgeable and then started to help me out some. But I abused the situation, if I'm perfectly honest here, knowing I'd be able to get away with it. And then there were a lot of proactive people. It was hard not to be proactive in this district. If you weren't proactive, it means you were going to be sitting there waiting on calls coming, and it was going to be nonstop taking reports for you because everybody else was going to be proactive getting into stuff. So yeah, we were in foot chases. I say almost every single night. It was rare we weren't, and then obviously a lot of fights, a lot of murders, a lot of shootings. Pretty much all of it we saw constantly.
Wow.
But again, a great way to learn. But I went from that, doing those buys whenever I could get the opportunity to kind of getting a niche. I also started to develop informants even when I was on patrol. I had my first informant not long after that, and I literally had him the day I left Charlotte, which was a 15-year relationship with that informant he ended up on one thing bringing in over 100 kilos. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, he was an incredible informant. Um, we hit one house with them. They were literally packaging the cocaine while we hit the house. Only time that's ever happened in mine. It was hard for them to say
Wow.
they didn't know what they were doing. Um, but then one of the bright sides is I also had gotten informant during that time who was a prostitute and had her the length of my career. And I didn't use her the last 4 years because she couldn't really do anything above street level. And when you're in vice and narcotics, that's not really what you're supposed to be doing. Definitely not what I was doing. But right before I left Charlotte, I met with her, and she was clean. She had gotten off of crack, and basically told me that was because of me. So it was kind of a highlight for
Wow.
my career. Yeah, I was pretty happy about that.
No
Uh,
kidding.
So you're doing these street level buys for the most part. And how long were you on the line until you were able to promote to detective?
so I stayed, let's see, about 7 years. Um, and it was 2004-ish was when I was pretty much only doing street level stuff. At that point, I hardly on patrol at all. It was basically all search warrants um, and dope related stuff, undercover a lot. And then 2007, I had two good friends in the district who were executed. Um, they were shot by a coward in the back of the head on duty, and that was, I think that was obviously the pivotal moment that hit me pretty hard, but also kind of gave me in a weird sense, the kick I needed to say, hey, I got real comfortable doing the street level stuff. And so I wasn't pushing to get on device and narcotics. And that kind of was all right, you need to start putting in and get in. So I put in and got it technically my second, but they filled the first one and then they made a second position, I guess, for me. So I got up right away in 2007.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I think that law enforcement is sadly one of those careers that if you do it long enough, not to minimize this, but you're going to lose friends. And
Yeah.
that's, really rough to say. Um, I now lost a friend of mine that was a deputy, Ned Bird. And around that same time, uh, Raleigh lost another officer. Um,
Hmm.
was there, do you think you dealt with that in any? I guess what I'm trying to say with the loss of someone that close, I know that you really wanted to go on and not take it seriously, but move on from the line. Did that loss impact you anymore when you're on the job? Like, did it make you more cautious, or is it
And
affecting your I don't want to say affecting your, because of course that's going to stress you out. Um, but I guess is that something that you carried throughout your entire career, or can you share that with us?
yeah, I mean, I carry it now, unfortunately. Or I don't know if I don't feel right saying unfortunately that one. So I've lost between stuff on the job and losing a battle to suicide. I'm at 8 friends I've lost
Mm.
now.
Oh my God. I'm so
And
sorry.
thank you. Um, I will say those Sean and Jeff, because of the way it went down, um, I've had a harder time dealing with, I guess. Um, I could just, I can tell you immediately after it happened, um, probably be the closest I've ever been to having a use of force that I would have not been able to justify. Uh, I had somebody on the street, and I just my personality. I'm a very, very laid back person. If you can get me to yell, that's pretty dang impressive. I don't do it. I've gotten in foot chase. I've been in a fight with a guy. I'm sitting there, man. We can stop anytime you're ready. Like it's not my nature to yell. It's just not how I do things. And I don't, thankfully, I don't lose my temper. And we were out with a gangbanger, and he wasn't happy we were out with him, and he made the comment, "I'm so glad those two are dead." Um, and that was,
Oh,
I got in his ear and said, "If you want to go, we can go right now. I'll take the badge off, and we can handle this like men." Uh, Now, granted, luckily for me, he didn't like that option, um, so he was quiet after that. But um, that was a moment for me where I was like, I got to check myself some, that I wasn't. There's a lot of anger that I wasn't dealing with properly. Um,
I
but
think
I will.
I don't know that very many people in that situation would have been able to control themselves. So good on you.
um, and I did have a partner there with me actually, and he helped me in that situation too, not to lose it.
Wow.
But you talk about the impact and the lasting impact. I can tell you, I drive on the street outside the apartment complex where they're at, and I haven't been back there in years. But like last time I was there, your mind just goes to to that immediately, and you get that feeling every anniversary. It's all over again, and then
Yeah.
that night, the night they were killed, we were at the hospital, and one of the most vivid memories for me is watching their families come in. Um,
Mm.
Sean's wife was pregnant at the time, and I still remember her getting to the hospital. I remember Jeff's wife getting there as well. Like it's just the kind of thing you wish you wouldn't remember, but you'll never not.
Mm. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, Cam, I don't mean to jump in over
No, go
top of
ahead.
you or anything.
No.
In situations like this, with that being common enough that, you're both sitting here saying that you've lost people, um, what supports are in place for people in this line of work who do lose, people that they care about like this?
So, and this is part of the reason why I have the other podcast, and it's part of the reason I want a platform. And I will say, I think departments are trying to do the right thing, some of them, and go the right route. When I was there, it just like you have your peer support and that kind of thing, but the problem is like, and you have therapists, you can go see a therapist, um, but there are different issues with that. One, every officer is scared to death that if you say the wrong thing to a therapist that's connected to your department, PTSD, and you can no longer carry a gun, and you're out of a job. And it's a very real. Like I know of officers who've lost their job or had to leave because they got labeled with PTSD. The truth of the matter, and I have a therapist I know very well who has done studies. There's probably over 80% of us have PTSD. I've come out. I definitely obviously have PTSD. I've been diagnosed with it. Um, it took me till 2022, or technically 2023, March 2023, before I was willing to see someone, get diagnosed, and do the right thing and get help for it.
Yeah.
But that's the week after Sean and Jeff were killed, um, I handled it like every officer did at the time. I went to the FOP lodge with everybody from the district and got so hammered that my wife had to carry me to the car. Basically, that's
Mm.
how you dealt with it. And
Yeah.
obviously, that is a short-term bad solution to a long-term problem.
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I think
it's yeah, go
sure.
ahead. Sorry, Cam.
I was going to say, I just think that when you're doing that kind of work and you're seeking adrenaline, seeking, events, it's usually when you don't have that in your regular life, you're going to get that by alcohol, drugs, or women for most cops.
Hmm.
It's usually one of the three that gets them. And, that's a unfortunate response. And I completely agree with you. The fear of being labeled as having something. When we had a guy that committed suicide in our squad as well, And, you know, I don't think anyone went to the psychologist for the department. You know, she gave us a little speech and she offered help, but we did the same thing. We just went out drinking, and I think that's a very common way to handle it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And I like that. Hopefully it may be changing some slowly, but there's also got to be um, a network outside of police departments, because if it's connected to the police department, after my second deep cover case, the department was trying to do the right thing and sent me to a therapist. And again, it was connected to the department, so I was automatically on edge. And I remember, I went to the first session with the therapist, and the therapist says, "Well, are you suffering from anything?" So I tested the water a little bit and said, "Well, I have some anxiety." And she goes, "Well, why do you have anxiety?" And I said, "Well, I spent the last 3 years of my life undercover, living with these people, and if they find out I'm a cop, I'm a dead man." um, and her exact words were, "Well, you have every right to be there." I was like, "All right, well, this is over." So at that point, the trust was gone. I was like, "You know what? I gave it a shot. It didn't work." So that was the last time I went to
Oh,
therapy until 2023.
oh, wow.
Well, let's jump into some of those stories. So you make it onto drugs and vice. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, Vice and Narcotics.
Okay.
Got there in 2007. And first case I worked with them was Gangster Disciple case that actually carried over from the district after a guy wanted, uh, and worked it with ATF as well. And it was a
So
big
they
case.
jumped you in like 2 feet. You weren't like
Well, no.
buying.
So I was also with an FTO during this time. We do 6 months of training, and you have to
Okay.
do all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. No. And I should have reworded that. Sorry. Because I basically did the 6 months of training. It was behind the scenes on that one, but yeah, there is a lot of training you have to do when you go to Vice and Narcotics. It's pretty much the same as when you start the academy. In a
So you're
sense.
learning to write or making sure you can write search warrants good,
Yeah.
making sure you're following policy, developing some informants, doing some street level stuff. Would that be fair?
Yeah, a lot. I was fortunate in my sense because I had done so many search warrants already from the district and stuff like that. I was very squared away there. A lot of work on street level stuff, moving stuff up, pinging phones, that kind of work, like all the other type of stuff, trash pools. Believe it or not, when you're the rookie in the Vice unit, you have to do pretty much all the trash pulls, which is so much fun. I really
Oh
miss
yeah.
those. um, and just so everybody knows, if somebody pulls your trash, we know whether it's going to be good or bad by the amount of dirty diapers. So if you put a bunch of dirty diapers in there, we already know we're going to find dope. So you might as well just knock it off. Please do not put the diapers in the trash. Please, you can put them anywhere else, just not in the trash.
Yeah.
So when do you go to this first? You said you're working an MC case.
So the first one it's Gangster Stables. It's a
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
yeah.
was thinking, yeah.
They were doing some human trafficking of underage girls. I had an informant left over from the district that I had back in the picture, and this is one of those painful memories. They they were using a lot of the girls out of the hotels and selling dope out of the hotels as well. And when I say hotels, I'm talking about really trashy ones along our worst area. And all the girls were just put out on the street corners walking from there. And that was normally where my informant would be. And I'd ask her, could she get back to the house? Because we heard the house is where the underage were, and that's what we needed. So she said she thought she probably could, and she tried to do that for me. And she would give me a call whenever she's able to, within the next week or so when she was able to get to the house and let me know what she saw. So I get a call about 3 days later from her. She's in the hospital, and or she's getting out. She's on her way of getting out of the hospital. She comes and meet me, and she has staples from the back of the head to the front. Well, she had gotten to the house, and now I'm really about to make you lose all your sponsors. She got to the house, and the leader of the gang his name is, he goes by Psycho, literally goes by Psycho, or did. He's dead now, which I'm happy about. But anyway, he wanted her to pleasure all the guys in different ways up in the room. At first, she did what he asked, and then he asked for some other things. She turned him down, and He explained to her how that's not allowed, beat the crap out of her upstairs. At the top of the stairs, he smashed her head through a wall and then threw her down the stairs. She saw underkids at the house, and we were able to use what she saw to get a search warrant right after that. And we hit the house. SWAT hits it. When I go in later after SWAT, make sure I won't get hurt. um, I go over to the stairs and I can see blood going all the way up the stairs. And you get to the top of the stairs and you can see a hole in the wall, um, completely, you know, verifying her story. And that one always also hit kind of hard just because I know she went to that house for me. And that's how it went down. So, and Psycho almost beat the charges because people wouldn't talk and crap like that. But luckily, he was also smart enough to tick off another gang, and so they took care of it for him or for me, and he is resting in peace now.
Oh, so you didn't
Or
have to go to
hopefully,
court that day?
no, he wasn't able to show up.
Oh,
Actually, it's weird.
well,
I think he was under the weather or ground, something like
gotcha.
that.
I'm crying
How
inside.
do you
Yeah, I try.
how do you l- hold space for all of that though? You mentioned that, she went to that house for you and then you walk in and you see the hole in the wall from her head. How do you uh, I don't justify is the wrong word because it sounds blamey and that's not where I'm coming from with this. But,
Oh, you
you
can because
know,
I blame myself. Like, I mean, it's not like
you shouldn't
it,
though. That's not what I'm saying.
um. So for 10 plus years, I like, and this is what I would tell everybody when I was younger, and it's actually what I thought. It wasn't that I was just making something up. Is when I'm at work, it's like being a like you go into what I call a robot mode, right? You handle these different situations. You can't have emotions. Whether you get in a fight with a guy or you're having to deal giving CPR to a kid, you can't have emotion at that time.
Mm.
That would change it. If you have an emotion when you're getting in a fight with a guy, that's when you have a bad use of force. Everything has to just be about the job. As crazy and as awful as that sounds, that has got to be your mentality. The problem is, I was great at it. Like I could definitely function like that until I couldn't. And that's years later. And that's when
Yeah.
you stop sleeping at all and you stay in anxiety and um, the few times you fall asleep, you end up with night terrors that are not pleasant.
Yeah.
So,
No kidding. That's a really tough thing to manage. And I want to be very clear with you. Like I hear you saying that it was your fault. It wasn't. And I'm saying that as a third party who is completely impartial and just sitting here listening to this. That's not on you. That's the job. That's not on you.
right. Yeah. I mean, like, yes, the rational side understands that.
Yeah,
But
I know.
still, yeah,
I understand. I just want to be very clear.
I appreciate that.
Mhm.
So, at what point in your career do you start to get into these bigger cases and the
So,
deep undercover?
and I had always said that is what I wanted, was the double identity, not just like, and this is the egotistical side of me. I know that I hate how much the word deep cover gets thrown around, um, because I take pride that I'm pretty confident I can say that I've done what basically nobody has done, at least not in the last 50 years, probably, which is truly embedding with these groups. And that means isolating yourself from your friends and family. And the only people you associate are your targets who become your best friends. And maybe, well, no, definitely at least one handler
Hmm.
with an agency. And that's it. And your communication with your handler is extremely limited and very controlled and very hard to do. So you don't have a lot of it.
And let's talk about that 1 second, because I want to make sure that people that are not familiar with actual police work understand this. A lot of departments, when they will use informants, and the informant is, so if Allie was working for me, I would send Allie to go get the crack rock or the drugs. I would watch Allie. Allie would have a phone hidden on her or some type of recording device. And then she would bring me back the drugs and we would develop our case that way. Departments like yours, you are actually buying them. And
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So our normal, yeah, I don't want to go into too much because there are certain tactics I don't give away, but our goal is always to have undercovers by. Just because obviously court proceedings are better with undercovers if it has to go to court,
Right.
and we do so much better job with the recorders. Informants, I think, love to film anything but the drug deal itself. I don't know why that is, but that's just a thing. So yeah, we always strive to make it where the UCs were doing the buys.
And the other point that I want to make about what you're doing is that there's a difference between working state level cases and federal level cases like you are. And the feds only take cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office that they're confident in winning, which
Yeah.
is means that that case has to be airtight. So your ability to actually get to this level is what I'm trying to express is that it's a very rare thing. This is not common. Not everyone gets to make these big cases or even attempt to work on these cases.
No, yeah, and I'm definitely, obviously proud of that, and that's the whole thing. You have you talked about in the beginning where people in the department when they first enter the academy, the things they want to do. You know, like you said, most of them want to go homicide, vice narcotics, and SWAT, right? Well, like our academy cast was 50 people. There are only going to be a few of those people that make it to any of those assignments.
Right.
Um, and the rest will, will still have great careers, but they won't necessarily be able to go those routes. So, and then to work your way up, even once you get to vice narcotics and start working the federal level, that takes another level on top of that as well. And you have to prove that you do good cases and good work, and are able to find yourself in shitstorms all the time.
So, what was the first big undercover case that you worked where you actually embedded yourself?
So, and this is a crazy story. We finished the Gangster Disciples, and I blow out my left leg playing football, blow out my ACL. So 5 months, I'm off. Which Vice and Narcotics, that was like the biggest kick in the butt because I also still hadn't been up there long at all. And actually, I take that back because I think that case was still going on, parts of it even after I got hurt. But so I'm laid off for 5 months. That means every informant I have is either going to jail, or finding someone else to work with, or most of my informants were paid informants. So they were finding someone else that could pay them. Usually they turn to the feds then. And then you don't get them back once they go fed. But so I get 5 months, I'm back out. And I'm like, I got to come up with something, right? And it's feast or famine in this world. And right before I got hurt, I did one buy with a stripper. And I was like, you know what? Let's just roll the dice, see what happens. I got nothing to lose. So I called her up. And sure enough, she remembered me. She wanted to meet. And I buy an 8-ball of cocaine from her. And I tell you, I'm just testing the water. If it's good, I'm going to want a lot more. There's something you can do. I also already knew from before who I believed her supplier was somebody I really, really wanted to get. He was supposed to be supplying all the clubs and was supposed to be a major hitter. So that was kind of my goal, is to get through her to get to him. So I don't even remember. Do another buy from her, may have been an ounce. And then we get up to do a yak. A yak is basically sit down, usually have a meal. Usually it's because most of the drug dealers I dealt with were guys. It was usually at places like Hooters or a strip club or something like that. That's kind of where they wanted to meet. She wanted to meet at this restaurant. And keep in mind, like, things were already very weird. I do this deal with her this time, and we do it a block from her condo complex, which that's not how drug deals happen. You never, ever do one that close to your home with a stranger, especially if it were a female. Like, that was very shocking to me. And then she also, like, whenever you're doing a drug deal, there's a lot of back and forth. You switch, like, it's so annoying a lot of times because you'll switch the location like 5 to 10 times. Like, it goes back and forth because everybody's testing the other one and trying to make sure not getting robbed and it's not the police. So I tell her, hey, I'll be there in about 15 minutes. She's like, all right, I'm going to be at this part of the parking lot in a green Volkswagen Beetle. I'm like, all right. So obviously I get on the radio, tell close cover, hey, it's supposed to be a green Volkswagen Beetle. None of us believe it's going to be a green Volkswagen Beetle because no one's ever going to tell you the truth like that. That's the drug dealing 101. You don't do that. So I pull up and there's first my close cover got in there and was like, oh, yep, there's a green and a white female in it. All right. So I'll roll up, park next to it. She gets in my car and she's got it in a Newport cigarette pack. Go figure. And usually drug deals 5 seconds max. Like, it is very fast. Everybody's very nervous and it's done because that's the most dangerous part for all aspects of it. The first 5 seconds of a drug deal, like, if you're going to die, usually it's in the first 3 because they're just going to, if it's a robbery gone bad, they're just going to shoot you immediately, that kind of thing. So she all of a sudden just starts talking about everything but the drug deal. Like, she's talking about the college she's in right now, the courses she's taking. Like, I'm like, what is this? This is not how this is done. I mean, I know I've been out for 5 months, but I'm pretty sure drug deals are still the same way. So she gets out of the car, then goes back to hers and takes off. And like I said, we do another one, kind of the same situation. And then we set up this yak, and she names this restaurant that was right by where we were. And keep in mind, it's Ballantyne area, which is a very ritzy part of Charlotte as well. So show up for the yak and still have my close cover units around. And this time I get there first, get a table outside because I want them to have good eyes and all that kind of thing. And all of a sudden she pulls up and my phone is blowing up now. And my partner at the time, Foosh, he sent me a text. You're on a date. You're on a date on city money right now. She apparently is wearing this very, very nice dress. And it is quite clear, hair done really nicely, that she has different alternatives than what I have for this meet. And was kind of heartbreaking at the time. I was like, well, this is going to mess up the whole case. I'm not going to be able to continue to do this because obviously I can't let this go anywhere. So she gets in. I decide.
Don't mind me cutting you off for 1 second. I just want to put some perspective in. How old are you at the time?
Let's see, this would have been 2009, born 77, 32.
Okay, 32. And you've got this attractive
26, stripper,
probably 26-year-old. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the optics are not good.
Right. Are you married at the time?
I am, with a newborn at the house. Yeah.
Okay. So you're about to lose your pension over this.
There we go.
And with this type of stuff, are you ordering drinks? I mean, are you
normally, but not this time?
Off, right? Yeah.
No, I'm gonna do the yak, and I decide, because I'm a very smart individual, that might as well have a little fun for the next hour, because we're gonna have to arrest her as soon as this is over. I'm gonna be writing a warrant for her arrest, and the only hope I have is that she flips. But there's not enough dope on the table where I'm guessing she won't flip, basically, because it wasn't enough to make it worth it. I think it had been just over trafficking, which sounds like a lot, but especially in Mecklenburg, it's not going to get me what I need. So I tell her that, I'm looking to buy kilos. I'm a billionaire. And basically I open up clubs and do that kind of thing. And I'm just a playboy, pretty much is what I tell her. And she bites hook, line, and sinker. For the life of me, I did not think this was a believable story at all. So we finished the yak, and she says, I can get you to my supplier, and you'll be able to deal with him eventually. Like, I can get you to that weight of what you want. So I was like, well, crap. So we get out of there, meet with my sergeant, who heard the whole conversation anyway. And I was like, well, I guess we'll just sign a warrant and be done with this. Because I don't think we can play this. And it's basically, well, hold that thought for a minute. Maybe we can. And nobody really wanted to give this up. And so another detective came up with the idea that we bring in another UC, a female UC, who's going to be my sister. And anytime I'm around this stripper, my sister will be involved too, so that we have eyes that nothing bad happens. I was like, perfect. I think we can do
When
that.
you
So
mean nothing bad happens, you mean that nothing
nothing that would
like
cost me my career, my
right.
marriage.
Okay. I just want to be clear on that because
Yeah.
I assume
Which
dinner went well and she wants to see you again and
she does, and we meet up with my sister, and she calls me and says, I want to take you to a party. You're gonna love it. It's a who's who party uptown. Dress up, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, can I bring my sister? Yeah. So I go to a party, and we walk into this party, and this is where the start of everything changing. I still remember, and I'm just gonna call her my sister. My sister and I looked at each other, and it was, holy crap, where are we at? Um, it was identifier of people that you know to be high end drug dealers. Like, you don't know their names, but there are looks that you know and that you expect to see with very high end drug dealers and mob. Like, half the people had the pinky rings, nice pinky rings,
Yeah.
not fake pinky rings, real jewelry. And it's one of those things when we first walked in, everybody stops and stares for a second. It was Marco's birthday. Who Marco's is who I will spend the next 2 years of my life with every single day. Um, and he's known as Marco's friend of the Greeks. And so at the time, I did not know any of this. I did not even know any of the. I'll be honest, I didn't know at this time. I didn't know there was such a thing as a Greek mob. So I was from Pennsylvania. I knew the Italian mob very, very well. Greek mob, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew there was something to this case, and then the drug dealer that I was originally looking to get close to, Mikey, he showed up for a little bit. He was connected to the Italians. I find that out later. But we walk out of there and basically go back and we're like, we got to play this out. We got to see where we can take this case. And so kind of kept going out for days after that. And I ended up getting very, very close to Marco. Stopped having to hang out with the stripper for the most part. We did have to do a few more deals with her to get closer to Mikey. We actually, just to make it more complicated, we needed to get her out of the picture because obviously I'm having to go out a lot without my sister. And the last thing that can happen is to me run into her out there. So we wanted to get her away from it. So we end up, she's buying, I forget how many ounces from Mikey, and we're going to take her off. And they're not going to know, she's not going to know I'm any part of it. Supposedly I'm in one of my other states at the time. I've flown out. They take her off. And it was actually my sister was the only one in town that was handling it with her. They take her off, bring her back to the station to see if they can flip her. And what she'll say, she won't give me up at all. She gives up Mikey. She gives up everybody else. Won't say a thing about me. And I'm sitting in the recording room listening to this whole thing. And of course, we're dying, laughing. Like, this lady's insane.
It's so nice of her.
Yeah, right?
It's
Which,
nice
keep in mind, as nice as it sounds, it goes back to what I told her on our date, and that was that I'm a billionaire. Truth of the matter was, like, and this, as dumb as that was, and I would never ever tell anybody to do that, that comment saved me because now she didn't care about me. She cared, this guy's got money. I need that money. And that's the truth. She went around and told everybody in town that she was sleeping with me. Luckily, we were able to verify it. But for me, that was perfect because that gave me instant credibility to everybody I needed that credibility with. So it kind of played into our favor. So we take her off. She actually agreed to work. So then it's very confusing.
What does take her off mean?
Flip her. We arrest her. We pull her
Okay.
over, find the dope in the car, and arrest her on the dope. But not to the jail. Like, she comes back, we interview her. She agrees to work, so she doesn't go to jail.
Okay.
We bring me back into the
Putting her
picture.
under a contract, or
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Can you explain that to people? Because I don't think, Allie, are you familiar with that? Like the process?
Not a clue.
So basically, I mean, she's now got this charge over her head, right? And usually the way we do it is when I talk to her, she has to be completely honest. You lie, no deal, period. So as long as she's honest about everything, which besides me, she was honest about everything. So then it's, long story short, do you want to help yourself? Right. We don't do it, or at the time we didn't do it where you do this, and this, and you lose the charges. Basically, you do this, we bring it to the district attorney, we'll sit down with you, and it'll help you towards your case. And that's how we leave it. She agreed to all that, and then there is a bunch of paperwork you fill out with it. So she does all that. We bring me back into the picture. She tells me, hey, I got hit up or whatever. And so I basically was like, well, since you were buying the dough for me, I'm going to help you with this. What do they need you to work off the charge or whatever? So yeah, all right, we'll take care of it. So we go out when she's working as an informant one night to go do a buy from Mikey. And she's so scared, she gets hammered, and she is a wreck. And we're like, well, we can't do this. This isn't going to work. So first, funny story with that though. So my sister and I take her back to her place, and she goes, are you going to walk me to my door? And I'm like, you've got to be crapping me right now. And I look at my sister and said, hey, did you need to use the bathroom or anything? You going to come with? She goes, no, I'm good. I'm just going to stay in the car. You go ahead. And like at this point, like if you could have seen the face, and she's smiling in the back seat, like, yeah, you're. So I am screaming, like, what do I do? What do I do? I literally got down and said, all right, I'm going to end up acting and walking halfway up, and then I'm going to trip and fall and act like I hurt my ankle, and I got to go back to the car. That was literally my game plan. I had nothing else to go for. Luckily, my sister gets out kind of, oh, that's right, I do have to go to the bathroom. Never mind. And so she goes in. She just wanted to make me sweat pretty good. I still haven't forgiven her for that, and promised her I will get even one day. So after that, they tell the stripper that basically you've got to stay out of the clubs. We won't charge you, and we'll work this case without you, but you've got to stay out of the clubs. If we see you up there, then we're gonna file. So that way, I wouldn't have to deal with her, and it would work out, which it did. It handled it well.
In situations like that, and I don't mean to keep going back to the same topic, but this is something that I kind of am passionate about, and I know very little about this world. So, like when it comes to people like this woman, who obviously has found herself in not the best situation and is told, okay, you have to stop doing this. See you later. Do they provide any supports or any structure for her, or is it just cross your fingers and hope for the best?
I mean, she's still like, so there was one club she was still able to go to, and that kind of thing. So it wasn't that she was cut off completely. Like she was able to pretty much basically go back to her life. As long as she didn't screw up, no charges, no nothing. She'd keep her job, go with school, and it was like, and that's exactly actually what happened with her. She never faced any charges. So she, now granted, she still messed her life up pretty bad, I hear later on, but that was kind of a gimme. Like, unfortunately, she just, part of hers was environmental, and she was just not a smart person in many ways, unfortunately.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it is. So that left it where my sister basically, because she was actually assigned to the DEA, so she pretty much went back to the DEA at that point, and that's when Marcos and Mikey and I were together nonstop from that point forward. Literally every night in the clubs, 6 a.m. at a strip club, which you never, ever, ever want to be at a strip club at 6 a.m. in the morning, ever.
During this time, and I just want to like clear this up to people listening to that watch Sopranos and whatnot. Are these guys that you're dealing with, are they doing coke in front of you? Are they asking you to do coke? Are they even using drugs, or is this all like very semi-professional?
Do they have white cats in their lap that they stroke like this? Like,
no, only me. I had the white cat. I had to be something, right? Come on.
Did they stick their pinky towards their mouth?
Yeah. They just wave it under your nose the whole time. Yeah. Come on. No. Marcos would supply some girls with cocaine. I'd see that every once in a while. Mikey supplied everybody with cocaine. I have a lot of drug dealing stories with Mikey, a lot. I got in trouble with the Greeks with Mikey. Technically, Marcus and I both did. That almost cost me either my life or the case. Um, but no, for the most part, Mikey did not use drugs at all. I don't, I mean, I never saw, I mean, Marcus and I were together nonstop and I never saw him use it. The only thing that ever made me wonder is he had some symptoms of what you would expect a cocaine user that puts up their nose to have. Um, but he may have done it earlier in his life and quit. That I don't know. He was an alcoholic, I know that, but not so much with the cocaine stuff. But so as Marcus and I got closer, he started to show me, basically he tells me, I'm Marcus, friend of the Greeks. I do all the clubs for the Greeks. Everything they do, I design them. I handle everything. Um, and then still remember we were at the strip club one night. I know, surprising. Um, and I was talking about, uh, my main profit was dope, is what I'm telling him. And I have a pretty decent supplier out in Mexico, but I'm looking for something else. And he says his family is connected into the political system at Bolivia, and that this is the exact same time that the DEA just got kicked out of Bolivia. And I said, well, I've got a plane. How much can we bring? So we made an agreement, 50 kilos every other week, and from Bolivia to Charlotte. Um, Perfect. And he goes, all right. We end up going out for lunch the next day, and he's like, "All right, we gotta talk and get this all figured out." He goes, "You're gonna have to open up two clubs in Charlotte." He goes, "You're gonna open up a dirty club, um, which is run down. That's where we're gonna store the dope and do all that stuff. You're also gonna have a very nice club uptown." Uh, and he goes, "This is gonna get us sponsored by the Greeks." And he always used the word sponsor. He goes, "You have to be sponsored by the Italians, the Greeks, or a couple of celebrities who I'm not gonna name that were in town." That those were your only options. What that meant to be sponsored was basically you pay them each month and nothing mysteriously happens to your building. All your permits are taken care of. You don't have to worry about things. That's what that meant.
And
Um,
about, if you don't mind me asking, uh, or Allie, you probably don't know of how much a kilo of coke costs, right? So, like, what's the profit margin
ten
on this? You're
dollars.
getting 50 a week,
50 every other week. We're going to bring it in twice a month, 50 kilos.
and where are you
And
buying that for? And like, what are you selling that for on the street?
wholesale on the street will sell it for 32, 33,000 per kilo, 32 to 33,000. So if you take that times 50, I'm not going to try and do the math.
Oh
Millions
my
of dollars.
God.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
It's a lot.
And
Uh,
how much coke do you think is coming in? Because that's just you with one order.
yeah.
There's other people that are ordering coke as well, right?
I mean, honestly, 50 kilos is a small order. Like
What do
that's
you think the
nothing.
ballpark is that's coming in to North Carolina, for example? Would be your
So
guesstimate?
from all different, like, and that's the other thing to keep in mind is there's not one route, right? You have
Right, you're
cartels coming
bringing
in
in
from,
and ships and
yeah, some
right,
of it's coming from Texas, some of it's coming from the
right.
coast of North Carolina, some of it's coming up from Florida.
Mm.
So you're talking thousands of kilos. I mean, tens of thousands of kilos, at least tens of thousands. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the hundred thousands, um, easily.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is kind of a not that's easy, but it really is common for this to happen. And
Yeah,
a lot of people just aren't aware that's happening, right?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, 50 kilos is literally nothing. I mean, it's enough to get the charges we need. Do it a couple times, boom, he's done for. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, in reality, it's not that big of a deal. As awful as that sounds. Um,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we planned that we go for lunch the next day, and this is where everything went to crap. Um, Sitting there, he gets a bottle of wine and talking, says, "All right, we're going to have to pay this person off, this person off, this person off, on top of being sponsored by the Greeks," and starts naming out politicians and stuff like that. So I go out there, and DEA and FDA and ATF are involved in the case right now, and SBI. Um, and we go out, and they say, "Come on." ATF takes me to go meet an FBI agent, and at that point, they take over the case. Everybody's cut out, and um, now it's just me and meeting with a handler from the FBI. And I don't get to be around anybody else anymore, except the bad guys. I get to be around the bad guys.
Are these local politicians or the state level or national level? What are we talking about?
Um,
Without naming names.
yeah, it's still got to be mostly local. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Um, so for FBI doesn't do anything fast, as everybody knows. So leave that there. The goal at this point is right. I'm playing in my backyard right now. This is a very dangerous and bad thing to do. And that was the first thing I said. I said, if I play in my backyard long enough, I'm going to get burnt. Too many people here know me, and it is going to happen. So, idea was to get a UC from another part of the country in, and he would take over, and I would be able to work my way out. That was the goal from that point forward, which I was totally on board with. Unfortunately, that would take about close to 2 years to do. Uh, Number one, the FBI has to open up a case, and it has to be a Group 1 case, and nothing goes fast. And then it took a lot of time, one, to find the UC that fit the profile we needed, and then in order for that guy to be trusted, like it took a lot for me to get him to be trusted by the Greeks. So it was a very, very long process. But during that time, I came close to getting burnt. I was with Mikey one time, and we were at an upscale club, and I recognized an officer that was in there, and it just annoyed him. Figured he would annoy me too. And then I hear my real name calling out. I hear someone calling me Matt. Like, you got to be kidding me! This isn't happening. And eventually, I hear it get close, and then I hear or feel someone grab my shoulder. And Mikey's literally right here on my left side, right next to me, and we're around all Italians. And so I'm like, oh, this is not good for me. my life expectancy, I think, is taking a hit at the moment. And so I turn around and he goes, Matt Pitcher, CMPD, which obviously you add PD to anything and everybody automatically, like, there's no curiosity about what he's saying. And I said, I don't know who blankety blank you think you're talking to. It's not me. Mikey, being my good friend, jumps in and saves me and says, dude, it's not who you think it is. Leave him alone and get out of here. Totally saved my butt.
Wow.
Several months later, Mikey again, we're at a party, about 300 people at a party, and it's a kind of a who's who party, some celebrities, athletes, that kind of thing there. And I knew there was a girl that went to my high school back in Pennsylvania, crazy enough, who had a quasi celebrity status. She was on a reality series for a while. And so I knew she might be there, but I was like, all right, number one, I think I was in 8th grade the last time she saw me. No way in the world she'll recognize me. I'm good. And I drove Mikey to this party, and he brought a kilo and a whole bunch of pills and stuff to this party. So he's packing his job. He's going to make a lot of money at this party. So he goes back in the media room, and that's where he puts himself. I'm out in the kitchen, and again, I hear my real name, which Matt could be anybody, but I do the side peripheral thing and realize that she's looking at me, yelling that name. So I was like, well, all right. I just work my way back up to Mikey in the media room, and I figured, well, all right, I'm just going to hang out with Mikey the whole night in the media room. Probably won't really see her. A couple minutes after I sit down with Mikey, she walks in with her 2 friends. I'm like, all right, I'm screwed. And it's one of those stadium seating ones too, where I'm up high, so I'd have to try to run the whole way down to get out. And they sit down right in front of us, and they're whispering to each other. My mind is racing, and I'm like, oh, this is it. I'm screwed. And sure enough, one of her friends then reaches back and whispers to Mikey, and Mikey, being my good friend as he always is, why are you asking me? Why don't you just ask him? And totally blows her off. It was 2 times he had me dead to rights, and he blew it. So wow. I really like that. I really like that guy. I miss him.
So this is like a 10 pucker factor, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
You're making diamonds. And
yeah.
Do you have your pistol with you?
No, I hadn't carried a gun. I couldn't carry. I got strip searched most of the time. So
okay.
No recordings, no pistol. Just was not feasible. A couple of times we got recordings, but very, very few. So yeah, that was with Mikey, and Mikey was actually like, he considered me his very, very best friend. I helped him move, and I still remember we were going to a different party. This was actually at a celebrity's house, and he was bringing his normal array of drugs, and he puts the backpack in the trunk of the car, and he gets back in the front. He goes, "Oh shit, hold on a second." And he goes, "Pop your trunk," and goes back, and he takes out his driver's license and he puts it in the book bag with the drugs, and comes back up and says, "My license has to be in there because if we got pulled over or something, it's not, they could arrest us both. But as long as my driver's license is in that bag, they can only arrest me." So he was literally protecting me. I've
Oh.
never seen anything like that. The guy was
So
just
when you're developing these friendships with criminals, is any part of you feeling bad at all that eventually you're going to be setting, or these people are going to be going to jail for a very long time?
so I still feel bad for some of the betrayal and stuff like that. To be perfectly honest, Marcos is hard. He had a hit put on him when the case was over. Now he's
Mm.
still alive and he's back in the country. He left the country when um, it first came, but like Marcos was real hard because Marcos considered me family. He had two daughters. I talked to them all the time. He was divorced. I mean, so one of the scariest nights of my life. And this was when I was trying to get vouched for by the Greeks for the Greeks to deal with me. This was later on. Marcos and I go out like we normally do. I picked him up at his condo. We drive down to this one Greek club, and he's acting all kinds of different. He's not really saying anything. He's on his phone. He's not letting me see his phone. We get to the club. Usually we just sit wherever we want. And the hostess this time is like, "Hey, I got your seats ready for you." And she puts us right in front of the one office where I knew that was where all the cameras were and all this. I was like, this can't be good. Um, so we're there, and he gets up several times, takes some phone calls, comes back, basically doesn't drink at all, which again, he's an alcoholic. I've never seen him not drink a ton. I said, "All right, come on, we're not even there that long, because we got to go. We're going up to Epicenter uptown, which is it's got a whole bunch of clubs in it. It's 3 stories high." So we drive up there. He's still not saying anything. He's just on his phone a lot. And we get there, we get to the second floor, and he goes, "Hold on a second," and he walks away and takes a phone call, and he comes back to me and says, "Come on, we're going to go have some wine at my place and sit and chill there." Now, again, I've spent basically every night in his place, and he always has every light on. All the doors are open. He's just that kind of person, right? Like if you walk, as soon as you walk in, you have the kitchen to the right, and he lives in a condo that's up high rise, about 20 stories up. So you have the kitchen to the right. I think there's a little closet right here. Walk, and then there's like a wall, and then the bedroom is on the left hand there. Living room is straight ahead, and then there's a half bathroom off to the side here, and then past the living room is a balcony where you can look all the way down. He opens up the door, and obviously all my alarms are going off at this point that I know something is not right, not good. I had thought about just running at the epicenter, uh, but did not. And so we get there, opens the door, it's pitch black. And he says, "Hey, go have a seat on the couch. I'll get the wine." So I walk in, all the doors are shut. I at that point I figure it's over. So I literally walk past the living room, open the sliding door, and walk out onto the balcony and look down to see where I'm gonna. I figure I'm gonna take a dive off of this at some point tonight. Might as well see where I'm headed. Now, and I will say there was a pool about halfway down, so the optimistic side of me thought, well, maybe I'll just aim for that pool and let's see how that plays out. So after that, I go back in. I sit on the couch. She brings a bottle of wine, and like I say, it was probably about 10 o'clock at night at that point. He asked me. I got interrogated the entire night from that point forward. Probably only like 30 questions. Asked me about bank accounts, who I am, where I grew up. Is just the same question asked different ways over and over again. He would get up occasionally, walk into his bedroom, and he would do the criminal door open. You know what I'm talking about, where you barely open that door and just slide your body through so no one can see in. Um, so I assumed there were people in there. Looking back at it now, my guess is they had that room tarped. That if I didn't pass that night, they would just send me in there and execute me in there. Easy to clean up. Um,
My
so
God.
it was a long night. So I don't know the exact time I left. I think it was around 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was daylight out. And he goes, "All right, uh, go ahead and take off. I'll call you later." And that's all he said. I walked down to my car, and they had gone through my car. My center console was open, and enough like they weren't hiding what they were doing. It was,
Yeah.
I guess, they no need for that.
Did you
Um,
ever talk about that afterwards with him, like the next day or two?
I talked about it
Or
at the time, so and it does come up a little bit. So he calls me about 2 hours later, says, "Hey, come on, let's go get a drink," and typical Marcus fashion. And so we go to the strip club, and he's basically, "Hey, congratulations, you're in." So it was basically, "Yeah, you're vouched for now. We'll deal with you."
Got it.
But during that interrogation, one of the things that he brought up a lot too was, you know, you've come over every night for dinner with my family. You've met my daughters. My daughters have come to you. You are part of my family. If you're lying to me, you're killing my family. You get that, right? Um,
Mm,
that was very, very hard.
did that touch
yeah.
you at the time, or were you thinking, I'm going to get executed if I don't, get
No,
into
it.
Matt the actor mode and tell this part to them?
um, no, it hit me. Again, like you try not to, but it definitely, like, you take a deep breath and you can't. Like, part of it is at that point, it's too late anyway. No matter what, it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
And your number one instinct that point was survival, um,
Hmm.
and I wasn't about to crack at that point. So,
Wow.
which I will
So
say, his daughters are alive. Everybody is well. So,
so now that you're vouched for, what does that lead to?
a lot of time spent with the Greeks. There was one individual. He was the scariest guy in the world, and I got to hang out with some hitmen. They were Italian, um, but got to meet an array of people, um, and that's when I started seeing some of the other crimes in terms of gambling, extortion, bribery, all of that kind of thing really came into
Hmm.
play. And then I also, that's when I made the big mistake, and I can't think of a name to call him right now, and I don't want to call him by his real name. So, the head of the Greek mafia in Charlotte, I've been hanging out with Mikey a lot when Mikey's doing his drug deals, and this is a big, big, big no for the Greeks. The Greeks will have nothing to do with dope. So both Marcus and I got it handed to us in not very pleasant terms that, we can hang out with Mikey basically, but if Mikey is dealing drugs, we will be nowhere near him, or um, one way or another, our relationship will be over. So it was not a pleasant conversation, and
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
another pucker factor in there.
So are the Greeks, are they the group that's controlling Charlotte?
Yeah, they genius of how they did things, to be quite honest, and still do. I mean, I don't know if I should say it's or not, but they're still completely in control as far as I know. But basically, they didn't do things that caused a big splash. They got involved in the political system and everything else, so that they had roots everywhere they needed them. Their tactics are phenomenal, and for preservation's sake, I won't go into it in here. But yeah, they
Hmm.
have Charlotte pretty well.
So if they're not into drugs, then what are they into? And is this just white collar type of crime, or
Um, they do make quite a bit off of gambling, surprisingly, but they extortion and bribery. Um, Basically, you want to run anything in Charlotte, it's going to go. You're going to be paying them.
Hmm.
that's interesting. So even though you were originally getting involved because you were
I wanted to
wondering,
dope.
yeah, how does that affect things? And are you actually receiving these shipments,
No, we
or
never. It was over after that. Once the FBI didn't care at all about the dope, that is not their focus. Once there's political corruption involved, they want to go after the political corruption.
okay,
Um, my sole job from that point forward was basically if somebody needed paid, to make sure they're paid so everybody's happy. But I needed to keep things status quo until they could get the other UC thing in, UC person in. So it was a very um, stressful time, like, because I just had to prolong things and keep it going until that person get in and I could get out. Um,
Wow.
so that was basically my function. And then literally, I finally got it to where the other guy was vouched for. They were good dealing with him, and I could spend my time in another part of the country, supposedly. And I came home for about 1 month, and a buddy of mine was in the intel unit, and this was a little over about a year and 2 months before the Democratic National Convention was coming to Charlotte. And I guess they had gotten a tip that they couldn't from FBI, but they didn't have much information that there was going to be a bombing at the DNC. Um,
Hmm.
and so they asked me if I would attempt to infiltrate some domestic terrorist groups. And so then I turned around and spent the next year of my life living with terrorists.
And you're married at this time, right?
Yeah, believe it or not.
So you're married. You're spending how many days a week with, guys at strip clubs and
That would be 24/7.
okay. So you're not seeing family.
No.
Okay. And
Wow.
this is kind of a clue of why you're having issues now, right? So you're spending 7 days a week. You get a short break, and then it's whatever happens with that case anyway.
Which one?
With the Greeks.
With the Greeks?
Do they get taken federal? And
no. The mayor of Charlotte. So I'm going to fast forward. 2014, the mayor of Charlotte is arrested on bribery from this case. The mayor is also best friends with my chief. When I got out of the case, my sergeant and I met with the FBI, and we said, no one can ever, like, if I have to testify, fine, that's my job. I will do what I have to do. Outside of that, my name can never, ever come up because it will destroy me in Charlotte. And I thought that was understood. And so 2014, they arrest the mayor. My chief is in the mayor's office when they arrest the mayor, and they tell the chief that this was my case, that I was the one who did this. Shocking.
The chief knew that this was going to happen?
No, he had no clue.
Okay.
And I was going for a P test 2 days later, and then again 2 days after that, and again 2 days after that. It's a long story, but basically I had somebody who's high up in the department, who was a very close friend of mine, tell me they're trying to discredit you. If they can't discredit you, it could turn violent. And I decided, you know what? I heard Florida is really, really nice and warm, and it may be time for the family and I to take off.
Wow.
So within a month period, actually under a month, we left Charlotte and ended up in Florida.
Wow.
And so when you were working this case too, were you duly sworn with the FBI?
Yeah, like you signed for this particular, for the first case, I signed one for case specific deputization.
Okay. And so that case concludes, and then you get asked to work the.
So that case was actually still going on. My part in that case concluded.
Your case. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's talk about,
go ahead,
if you don't mind, the overlap of when you get asked to work on this terrorism case for the DNC.
So it was August 2011. I just came home, and my buddy tells me about the possible bombing, and if I could go to meetings and see if I could infiltrate and embed. So I did. Went to a couple meetings. The first meeting, literally stood in the, like, I just figure out what I want to say and not say. Like, I did some studying to figure out behavior analysis of how some of these people act so that I would fit in right. So first meeting, I go to the meeting, sit back in the corner and rush out before the meeting's basically over, not talking to anybody. Second meeting, they grabbed me so that I had to talk, which is what I wanted. Kind of dug my way into that, and then just from watching people and a little bit of luck, I was told, oh, you got to meet this one guy. You and he will be best friends. I guarantee it. I call this guy Billy. And so I meet Billy. Billy is extremely charismatic. The first time I meet him, just super nice guy. I kind of think, oh, this is going down a rabbit hole. This sucks. This is not where I need to go. And Billy wants me to go back to his farm one day with him. So I'm like, all right. It's actually his parents' farm. But he had a place there too. And he also had a house uptown. So we go back to his farm, and I walk in his room, and his walls are covered with drawings that he made, he's very artistic, and a bunch of pictures of cops on fire, um, beheadings of cops, cops having their head cut in half, where he drew these things. Uh, all of a sudden, his other side comes out, and his extreme, and that's not even a good enough word, hatred for police. He
Wow.
was very, very much anti-police. Um,
Is
then he
this an
showed,
anarchist group?
yeah, it's an
Okay.
anarchist. Technically, he's an environmental anarchist, but more anarchist.
Do you
Um,
know what that is, Sally?
Nope.
Can you explain that to her?
so, like your anarchists are no government at all. They hate the government. Period.
Sure.
Any kind of
Yeah.
order is bad. Environmental anarchists have the environment side on top of that. They hate the government, plus everybody pollutes, so they hate everybody. Um,
Oh, okay. That's what I
like
figured it was.
his
Interesting.
his particular philosophy was we had to go pre-industry age. So basically, back when the wheel was invented, we needed to stop right there.
Oh,
And it was
interesting take.
so. After that, I decided, well, maybe Billy and I do need to get closer. And he showed me his gun collection, which was a very fabulous gun collection, to be quite honest. And he talked about how important it is to be able to shoot to protect yourself against the government. Also, he was borderline sovereign citizen in that aspect of things. But
What
his
does
was
that
just
mean?
that extreme anarchist. Basically, don't believe in our government. They have their own. It's a headache to talk, but basically they're the ones who, when they get pulled over, they won't have an actual driver's license. They don't have registration. They say, "Oh, you can't give me a ticket. I'm traveling. I'm not driving." They think they have this little word for tattoo, and
Mhm.
it's just a bunch of crap. They're a bunch of idiots.
Right.
So I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you some hate mail for that one. I promise.
Oh yeah, I'm good with that. That and the paper license plates that they use,
Yeah,
and yes,
that's
it's
so annoying.
quite common.
Mm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I did hang out with a lot of them too when I was under in this case. But so Billy and I begin to
Interesting.
get a lot closer. And at this point, FBI is involved in this case too. They get me an apartment, which I did get to stay in some, but I mostly slept in a compound, which sucked. Um, I went from being a billionaire to literally dumpster diving for food most of the time.
I
Oh.
wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
not
went
it's not a great
from
memory.
right private jet to eating out of a trash can.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah,
I did this in reverse order. Like
Hmm.
right.
there was literally
Hmm.
one night I'm sleeping on a sidewalk and uh, one of the idiots is sitting there pretending he's a DJ and he's playing one of the songs that was playing at the club all the time when I was quote unquote a billionaire. And it definitely registered in my mind like I really screwed this up.
Right.
um,
So when you're sleeping on the sidewalk and there's a man pretending to be a DJ, are you scared? Like, is there fear? Do you feel fear? What do you feel?
actually, that place was less scared that night, that particular sidewalk, just because there were more different people around. At the compound, sleeping at Billy's, scared to death. So Billy,
Can you
one,
explain the compound and kind of where this is and what that entailed?
so compound was kind of a half vacant building that was kind of fenced in that you couldn't really see in and all that, and that's where um, some of your groups would hang out. Your anarchists, you had to be invited in, kind of thing. Uh, your more extreme people would be there. So once Billy and I start to get close, one, I find out Billy has a coke habit, and then I find out two, Billy's psychotic, and I'm not using that word just to say it. He is literally psychotic. He he talks a lot about killing, blowing things up.
Mm.
He's definitely got issues. He actually teaches me how to make bombs during this case. I thought that was very nice of him.
Oh,
A
how
lot of stuff I
generous.
did not know. Like you can mix kerosene and oil in a certain way, and it does a certain kind of burn. A lot of very
Oh.
informative information. He also taught me to shoot, which was some scary moments of my life because he would stay back with the guns and have me put the targets downrange. Um, that was and no. and I talk about this, that was not smart on my part to do that. That was a clear sign that I was too involved in the case, because I did
Mm.
not tell my handlers about it, because I knew that would not be allowed, not be kicked out of the case.
Hmm.
Fortunate or lucky that nothing happened. So, and I've looking back at it now, it's one of the most selfish things I've done in a sense, because if Billy had shot me, the my handlers weren't going to look at it as it being my fault. They were going to look at it that they screwed up, and so they're the ones who would have had to live with it. So I regret that, but
Yeah, that's fair.
it is what it did.
Can I ask another question before we
Yeah.
go any further? So I'm going backwards just a tiny bit, so bear with me. But after your stint with the Greeks, you go to Florida.
Like, so Florida was after the terrorist. Like, that was,
Oh,
uh,
Florida's after the terrorist.
yeah. So
Okay.
when I finished the Greeks, the other undercover I brought in, he continues with them for a few more years. Like, he does it the typical FBI way. He'd come in town for a few days, deal with them, turn around, leave. Come in for a few days, turn around, leave. I didn't have to be there at all. For a while, I had to take some phone calls, and that was it.
Are you like going to the grocery store? Are you afraid like they're gonna see you? Like what how does that work?
So for that month between the cases, I can say I'm one of the original Amazon Prime people. No, I did not. I did not leave the house.
Okay.
I never left the house really again. There was one time after the second case, we went out with friends to eat, and somebody from another case showed up, and I had to sneak out and hide in the
Mm.
car while they all ate because somebody from another case. So yeah, going out wasn't much of an option for me.
Do you tell the
Even
people that you're with that, I mean, what kind of excuse do you make? Oh, I'm not feeling well, or do you just does
So
anyone else know about this stuff or know about your life besides your wife?
during the case, no, since this was after the two deep cover cases, some close friends knew, and that's who we were out with. So basically, it was just that, hey, this is somebody I dealt with undercover. I got to go.
Gotcha.
even now though, do you have any fear of some sort of retribution or anything like that?
I did for a while. I don't now. I'm obviously burned in both cases now. I got out of the second case unburned, and then somebody in my department in 2014 gave me up to the terrorist. So I'm burned in both of them. It's been 10 years plus now. Um, so I kind of am under the hope that their bygones be bygones. And for me, health wise, I can't live in fear anymore. So
No.
hoping it's over and done with. Let's put it that way.
Good.
So getting back to where we're at with the terrorist, you're making some contacts, you're doing, it sounds like they've trusted you immensely.
I'm working on the trust. It takes me so I spending all this time with them. It took me till May to be vetted, and that literally included me having to get arrested. Which, if you go to my Instagram, you can see my lovely mugshot. Uh, so there was Bank of America was having a shareholders meeting, and there was a big protest plan for it. And with my group, I was quote unquote on the arrest team. Just like law enforcement have an arrest team of people to arrest that are going to go get the people to arrest, protesters have people that must get arrested in the protest to get the point across or whatever. And you talk about like this was I've been in the case now for since August. Um, I was wearing down for sure. um, and I had built myself up like everything had happened like my communication with my handler was mostly memes. They would send me a meme and I would reply back LOL or something like, "Oh, that's funny," and that means I'm okay. That was the extent of our communication. If I put back
Mm.
that's stupid, that meant I'm in trouble and they had to do what they could to try to find me because they didn't. I wasn't able to tell them where I was. Uh, so 2 weeks prior to the shareholder meeting, Billy basically was like, "Hey, you got to get arrested." Um, so I carefully was able to talk to my handler and say, "Hey, I need to get arrested," which their response was, "Haha, you're funny." Pretty much, no, this got to happen. And so, hats off to my handlers. They did an incredible job and basically cleared it with the chief. And then the sheriff was the only one in the sheriff's office that knew because he had to clear the computer so that nothing came back as me. And that was the only people who knew besides 2 officers who were supposed to be the ones to arrest me, who were 2 good friends of mine. Nobody else was to know anything about it. And so I find out the night before that we are going to take one of the main streets in Charlotte to march up to Bank of America, and we're going to be in the front. And they expect us to get arrested when we try to take the street, which is just perfect because that'd be at 6 o'clock in the morning before any media, before anything. I get vetted, and I don't have anything to worry about. So 6 o'clock that morning, sure enough, we take the street. Bike officers pile in and block us off. And I was like a school kid. I was so happy that, all right, this is probably the best case scenario. So they pull in front of us, and we're there for like 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, they just peel off and let us take the street. I swear I could probably feel the blood draining from my face. I have never been so mad in my life.
No.
So we march up, and at this point, all I can think about is I hope they understand the situation they just put me in, because it's not a question that, oh, well, you didn't get arrested, everything is fine. They're going to make me elevate to whatever needs to be elevated to for me to get arrested. Like, I have to be arrested. So we get up there, and the lady that's in charge takes me aside and is like, but there's 3 of us that are on the arrest team. Like, all right, you guys are going to break into Bank of America. You guys are jumping the barricades and storming the shareholders meeting. So at this point, I probably was not also in my right mind. I was like, screw it, I'm game. And I find an opening, and I just haul it for that opening. Because I literally was going to try to make it into the shareholders meeting. Dumb. But that's where my mind was at that point. So I go to clear the barricade, and I'm going over top of it, and I didn't happen to notice the young officer who looked to be fresh out of the academy in very good physical condition and just waiting for some idiot to try to jump the barricade. He had his hands on me so fast. He just literally, I was like, oh, this didn't go as planned. So I was the first one to get arrested. I got charged with battery and resisting arrest. And because it was a big shareholder meeting and a very large protest, CNN was there, Fox News was there, ABC, NBC, and my face got plastered on all of them. Matter of fact, CNN was asking me questions, and Billy was answering the questions for me because he's a nice guy like that. And then I go to jail. I was in jail for about 12 hours. And I didn't know, like, it was an awful 12 hours because I didn't know what I was going to be coming out to. Especially with all the publicity, I thought for sure this had to have ruined the case. So I'm in jail 12 hours. I meet with the magistrate. They said, all right, your bail's been paid. You can go. So I'm thinking, all right, who paid my bail? That's all I want to know right now. But I couldn't say anything to her. So I just walk out. And, of course, it's dark now. And so you walk out, and there's like this chain fence that leads you maybe 100 feet out. And then there's the parking lot past 100 feet. And there's a car sitting right there. But it's too far away for me to make anything out about the car. So I have no idea. I'm like, all right, this is it. Let's see what's up. And sure enough, it was a couple of my protest buddies. And they're like, hey, we paid your bail. Let's go. And so back to the compound we went. I get back to the compound. There's about 100 people there. They're all clapping. Everybody gives me a hug. Very weird moment. The bad part was I had built it up in my head that after I get arrested, I was going to get to come home and see my family. And it was like that crashing moment. Like, why did you ever think that that's not going to get to happen? Now more than ever, you're never going to get to see them.
And how long have you been doing this at that point?
September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 9 months.
So for 9 months, you're living like a homeless person, eating crappy food, and
Literally.
probably like smell really bad, as well as all these people, right?
So at this point, I was still showering some. And now this stops 2 months, like about July. I stopped showering because I was so sick of smelling everybody else that I was like, you know what, forget it. Like there were definitely some like
Allie, this is a common thing, with this group. So
That's
yeah,
so interesting. I'm
they
learning so
don't
much.
shower.
How
A lot of them don't.
interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
So July is when things start to change, and I didn't realize exactly what was happening at that point. But Billy introduced me to some other people that just came into town for the DNC, and he's like, "Hey, I think you're going to be really good friends with these people." Um, and that's basically how he kind of left it. Like Billy and I still hung out a lot, but not as much. And so these other people, I get close to them pretty quickly, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do a bombing at the DNC." Um, and they're like, "We've got supplies that are going to be coming in from another part of the country, but we don't have anywhere to put them." And I said, "Well, I lived at my apartment complex. I kind of got to know the one neighbor up there. I've cut his grass and stuff. He's got a storage unit. I know that. He'd probably give me the key, no question asked. What do you think?" They're like, "Yeah, that would be perfect." So obviously, I have FBI gets me a storage unit. We have that all decked out, and then we did get some recordings of what the plan was, and um, they come up with another game plan, and basically they very non-overtly start following them everywhere with marked police units. Everywhere they go, they always had a marked police unit. Um,
Hmm.
about the second day into DNC, they gave up and said, "Screw it, we're not doing it," and they didn't bring the supplies down. Um, so we prevented the bombing, which was the ultimate goal. The agency made one mistake and they almost got me killed right before DNC. They were still really scared of Billy, and so Billy's driver's license was revoked, and the compound he was moving a vehicle in the compound to park it somewhere else in the compound, which is private property. But when he was backing it, one of his wheels hit the street, and so they turned around and arrested him for driving with a revoked driver's license, which obviously was very suspicious because you never really get in that situation. The other thing is he was given no bond. Um,
Hmm.
and it came out that in order for them to keep him no bond, they were going to have to play a couple of the recordings I did have with him, where he had talked about bombings and how to make bombs and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they tell me this one night, basically, I'm not allowed to leave, but they may end up giving me up, because in order to keep him in jail, they would have to play it. And so there's no reason to keep him in jail. He's not the threat. And I
Yeah.
realized that because he lives here, he would not be the one. His sole function was to introduce me to the people coming from out of town who were going to do bombing. We were all the ones, this particular terrorist group operates the same as Al Qaeda. They operate in cells, and so people don't know who each other are. That way, nobody can rat on each other. So there's no way Billy was going to be any part of it. And I was so bloody angry at this time. Like, if you do that, understand you've got me killed. Like, I won't make
Yeah.
it out. I will die. And they ended up not. They let him out of jail. Actually, I'm the one who went and picked him up from jail. Um, but yeah, that was the only one that about put me through the roof on that one.
No kidding. That's got to be tough for your like sense of self too. Because I'm thinking about like you're hearing all of this and you know what's going on, and then you're also the one who's picking him up, and then you have to hear what he's saying about it, and that's got to be really difficult to one be able to get into that, and then when it ends, to be able to come out of it.
Um, yeah, definitely when it ended, it was not an easy process across the board. So when it was time, when we foiled the plot and the bombing was prevented, I still had to stick around for a little bit to make sure nothing else would pop off. And then they were going to let me know when I could go home. Um, and so they sent me a text, go home, or clean yourself, go home. I forget what the exact wording was. But So I get back to my house and my phone starts blowing up from all my terrorist buddies. And they're like, hey, it's time for you to get back on the sailboat and take off. We love you, but you got to go. The FBI, the local department, passed this around to all the different organizations that they were looking for me. It was the best idea ever for getting me out. So I made it
That's
out of
so
that case
funny.
without getting burned at all until
So is
my,
that you during that time?
that's the long hair. Yeah, that's me.
Amazing.
You'll have to send me a
Huh.
picture of that. That is amazing,
Yeah.
and a brilliant idea, because that was one of my questions, is that, how do you transition from a role like that without blowing your cover and, ruining the potential for someone else to come back in?
And I would love to say that was my idea. That was somebody else's idea, but it was a beautiful idea. Like I said, made it out scot free. It wasn't until my department decided to burn me that I was ever
Mm.
caught in that one.
And so
And
after they
the only reason I know I was burned was because all of a sudden on my Facebook page or whatever, the UC one, um, saying my UC name, they said, if so and so isn't a real person, then we can kill them, right? Because they're not a real person. So that was how we knew.
and that was a cop
Yeah.
that put that on?
What's that? It was one of the terrorists.
Okay. Um,
Mm.
and how does your department handle this when you transition out of a role like that?
So in this one, I give them hats off. They tried to do everything the right way. They really did. I don't blame them for anything. So it's funny. So when I first got home, like it took me about 45 minutes to an hour to get home because you do a lot to clean yourself, which is lose any possible tails, anything like that. I pulled into my driveway. I sat in my driveway for an extended period of time because I didn't even know how to go into my house. Go back. Eventually, I walked in. I think my wife was there. I think I said, "I'm going straight to the shower. Don't get anywhere near me." And I think I showered for like 5 hours, not literally, but very long shower, and then immediately shaved my glorious beard. I was so happy to get rid of that thing. Um, and then,
What's that conversation like? Did you text her that you were coming home finally?
no, I think I just showed up. I do not remember texting her.
So
Wow.
you haven't seen her in how long?
Year.
And so you haven't seen her in a
That's
year.
not exactly true. There were
Okay.
a couple moments in there. Like, so I did have one stint for a couple of days where I got to go on a family vacation, which looking back was not a good idea. I wasn't mentally, I was not there. I could not switch back from being the other person. I was literally gone the whole time. I ended up just leaving and going back.
So you haven't seen your wife pretty much in a year.
Yeah.
And you don't text her, you don't call, you
Nope.
just show up, you've got a beard, you smell like a garbage can, and she really just doesn't know you.
Yeah. We had two conversations while I was undercover where she called. One, because my kid, who had always been perfect, was all of a sudden very depressed, and he told his teacher, "I miss my daddy." I almost
no.
dropped the case right there and came home. Matter of fact, I
How
told
old
her
was
so.
he at the time?
3 years old.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I told my wife, I said, I'm done. I'm coming home. And she, as the one, said, well, slow down for a second. And she, because I had told her what the case was about. And she said, so if you come home and there is a bombing, are you going to be able to live with yourself after that? Obviously, I knew the answer to that. So I stayed. And then the other time I talked to my wife was my mom had uterine cancer and was in the hospital during the case. So my wife called to tell me that she had cancer.
Shit.
But she did live. She did live through it. And we did. I talked to the apartment, and because this was in Charlotte, and so there was a talk of could I get to the hospital to see my mom, and we decided it was too risky for everybody.
Your wife
Okay.
must be an absolute saint of a woman.
She gets that a lot.
I bet she does. It sounds like she deserves it because
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Well, and like how unselfish of her to deal with all this, knowing that, okay, my husband is out there doing the good fight and preventing a bombing. I mean, that's, not many people can say that.
Right.
It's not he's out just buying 8 balls of coke, or he's trying to get, those kilos off the street. Like, you are preventing a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
like to sit here and do you ever just think about that? Like, when you're sitting in the office, like, if you mess that up, we would have a terrorist attack in North Carolina.
I don't know. I'll be honest, I spent so much time thinking about being in the case. I don't know if I think about that side of it. Like, I wish I thought more about that side of it than the side of it I do.
Hmm.
But I find, like, and I'm getting better, because half my day felt like were flashbacks between the two cases. And it's
Mm.
much, much better now. But actually, talking about it, like doing these kind of things, helped out tremendously, and talking to a therapist was huge. It used to be, so I did my first podcast in 2018 or 19. Um, and it was funny because when I was first approached about it, doing it, I was like, "You have got to be insane if you think I'm going to talk about it." And I would have a very visual reaction. I used to have a very visual reaction when I talk about these cases. It was like somebody turned it down to 0 degrees. I'd literally start to shiver, have trouble talking, and I would shake really, really bad. So
Mm.
obviously, it's gotten very much better.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it has, because I think that these sort of stories are really important to tell. And I'm glad that you're well enough to tell them, and healed at least enough to be able to do that.
Yeah,
So thank you.
thanks. And then, so when I got home from the second case, it was hard. We went through, I don't want to necessarily call it a rough patch, but the, and I think it was just to protect me, in a sense, my own brain. I just assumed, so I say it now and it makes me laugh, because how dumb am I? That there was a pause button, right? When I walked out the door, that I hit pause, everybody else's life stays exactly the same until I get back. And then we just pick up right where I left off, and nothing has changed. And obviously, she learned how to hold down her career, handle everything at home, and do everything without me. I had to find my place again. Like, I'm pretty lost. So it took a while.
Well,
It was a
you
struggle.
haven't been yourself. You've been playing a role for multiple years of your life.
Yeah.
So how do you find kind of your real self? Do you just take a extended time off of work?
So they
Hopefully
gave
they
me
gave you some time off.
so I get home, and then I get a text that, hey, debriefing next week, Wednesday. Don't come into the office prior to, just come to the debriefing. And it was with the major and stuff, who I have a great deal of respect for. So I go to debriefing, and basically that's where they say, you're gonna have to go see a therapist. You have 10 sessions you got to go to. Fine. Again, they're trying to do the right thing. And then they also said, you don't come back to work for a month. And then when you do come back, where do you want to go? So I was able to pick my assignment and take a month. I went to the Outer Banks. Love that place. So there was a time period to try to regroup. There's a lot of things I should have done differently to help myself after that. But like, I'm about a few weeks after I got back from the second case, I had coincidentally just had my physical, and my blood pressure, and I was in decent health at that time, or looked like I was in decent health at that time. My blood pressure was 200 and some over like 117 or something like that, which is unbelievably high.
Yeah.
They put me on blood pressure medication to get it down to a non-dying level, at least, not where it should be.
It's
And
not
I was,
like you were stressed or anything.
Right.
nah,
Yeah,
It's
you're
not
not a
like,
walking heart attack. Right.
exactly.
good
But
gracious.
like, so I was on blood pressure medication until July of 2023, which I'm now not on any medication.
Good for you.
But that was all just not dealing with the mental side of it. So.
So what was your did you actually go to that new role at all, or did you call it quits after that and just
No, I went to the new role. I went to
for
DEA
it?
task force, HIDA, and I spent there until I left Charlotte. Um, and I actually went on. I became a deputy down here in Florida. Knowing everything I know now, I would have never been a deputy down here. I was done. Um, I was just killing myself at that point. Um, Basically wanting to die at that point, if I'm 100% honest. And the only thing positive I feel like I did down here is I worked a serial killer case, um, and got that guy the death penalty, and that's about it.
Wow.
Um, but my,
Which
my my brain
which
was fried.
case is that? I've got to ask.
So it's Stephen Wolf.
Okay,
He's already been tried, convicted on that, so I can say his name.
you
It
may need to come
is
back on the show for that one.
that is, I interviewed him for like 12 hours at his request. Um, he only time this is so all right. Real quick with that one, he brutally. We got him on a very brutal rape and murder down here.
Mm.
He had another murder that we know of for sure. We think there's a bunch of other bodies he's attached to. Number one, you don't get to the level of what he did down here on your first one, but so he developed an extreme liking for me. Even when I'm interviewing him at one point, all the different tactics coming in and out and getting close and all that. And he had already broken some. And so at one point I put my hand on his shoulder and was just like, you gotta help yourself out and get this off your chest kind of thing. And he goes, I don't let anybody put their hand on my shoulder. I was like, sorry. And he goes, no, you can. It reminds me of prison. And I was like, oh, that's the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I just want to die. And then we're in trial, and I have to get up on the stand. They're playing this long interview and different parts from it, and I have to explain to the jury, well, you're being so nice to him and telling him everything's all right and blah blah blah. Well, yes, this is a way of getting him to tell the truth and to get him to relax a little bit and confide in me. And so I all this on the stand with him in the courtroom. I get done testifying, get up, and he yells with the jury still in there and everything, Matt, I am so sorry I put you through this. Never in my life have I experienced anything like this. So we believe he actually had a crush on me.
Allie is
He
actually
never.
touched by this. I just saw her grabbing her
I am
chest.
touched.
The
I
guy's a
can understand it.
psychopath.
I know.
Allie
My
loves a good love story, though.
If I
So
showed you what he did to this female.
Listen, I can't even look at like garbage on the side of the street without thinking like, oh, that's so sad. That poor cup.
I wish we had
So
a
like,
Taylor Swift song playing right now.
Well, if it makes you
it's
feel
true.
any bit better, the one softy part of me is I have a very hard time with the death penalty. So when it was my testimony that got him, and he's actually one of the only times in Florida history where everybody in the jury wanted the death penalty. Every single member asked for
Wow.
the death penalty on him. Again, what
Wow.
he did to this female, I've never. She
Yeah.
didn't. She died in a way that is very unusual and very painful. Um,
Mm. But I always think because my issue is, and it's a problem. It's not a good thing that I do this, but I do it anyway. Is I think to myself, okay, but like what made him this person? Not that it's an excuse in any way, shape, or form, but it does like give context.
I
And I
get that
think
with a
that's where
lot. Like
I'm
I
like,
do that with a lot of like drug users and the crimes they get into.
yeah,
Totally get it. I had an
yeah.
informant who I felt so awful for. She unfortunately ended up ODing,
Mm.
but she was a Division I basketball player for Connecticut and blew out her knee. And this was when you fixed it with oxys. So she had a never-ending supply. And then when it got cut off, she had to switch to heroin to get her fix, and it just went downhill.
Ugh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking. But yeah, I feel you because I don't know how you do what you do or did what you did because it must take, and I said this to you before we even started, it must take such an incredible amount of strength emotionally and mentally to be able to do that.
Um,
And
I guess I
that's
like to think so.
and true.
So after the serial killer case is done, which is, I mean, your life really is unreal at this point. You know, you got to elite status and you're working these huge undercover cases and spending years of your life doing it. And then your wife is putting up with you this entire time. You move to Florida, and the first
Very
thing you
quickly.
do is become a deputy and get involved with a serial killer. And
So
actually,
yeah, that wasn't the first thing I did. I had to go on the road and do all that. So it was a little bit of a break in there, but
but
then I
still, how many
quickly
people
went
in
to
their career
homicide.
can name that, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, it was a running joke down here. I couldn't have Thanksgiving with the family. I messed up every single Thanksgiving. When we first moved down here, that very first Thanksgiving, I got basically in a brawl with 10 people on duty, um, which was, they beat the snot out of this one guy. I thought they killed him. And then I follow a trail of blood back into this um, trailer. And then there's a lady in there washing blood off her hands. I'm like, oh, crap. So I quickly put her in handcuffs, and apparently her entire family, which consisted of the whole world, and I didn't know it, was not happy that she was in cuffs. And so they decided to try to fight me and the guy I was training at the time. So
Oh
that
my
was one
God.
Thanksgiving. That was a lot of fun. And then every Thanksgiving after that, it was a homicide or a dead body. I couldn't make it to any of them. So,
Can I
yeah.
ask you what is it? Because I think everybody has their reasons for what they do in life. Your line of work and the things you've done are so dangerous, but also so, so, so very important. What is it that drives you to do these things?
Um, the shallow side is I do like the adrenaline. Like I love the deep cover work. I'll be honest. That and like if it wasn't for family life and the mental aspect, I absolutely love it.
Mm.
It's a challenge every time. The other, yeah, I truly believe almost every single, excuse me, officer gets in it for whatever caused it, which I believe mine may have been some of my early childhood experience, stuff like that. The desperate need to protect other people.
Mm.
Um, it's funny because when I was forced to retire, coincidentally, we got a Shiba Inu dog during that time for my son. Um, well, that Piper is her name. Piper and I have actually bonded huge. And I think part of it was
Oh.
because she's a little dog, it gave me, I could protect her. Like I felt like I was able to protect because I needed that feeling. Like I went into, when I had to retire, I went into life insurance because I thought I could help people at a very bad time. Found out quickly life
Mm.
insurance is a big racket, and I decided I wanted absolutely
Mhm.
nothing to do with it. So it did not last long, but there
Mhm.
was like searching for that. And that's why like now, I'm a volunteer with Copline. Absolutely love Copline. I have the podcast. I even keep in contact with one of the victims of human trafficking that unfortunately during that time I was not able to help. But I
Wow.
still talk to her now, kind of thing. So I
Wow.
think I think all officers need that, and I think that's kind of what drives us our career and afterwards as well.
Hmm. That's a good answer.
yeah,
I
it's
rehearsed it. I have a piece of paper right here. It's
right,
written.
right. Yes, 2 hours of rehearsing, right? That's
Yeah.
put that on your resume. So, what is next up for you? You've got the podcast going, which if you want to give that in our plug, please do.
So yes, Undercover Dumpster Fire. Again, it's on the YouTube. Also, you can check out my Instagram. Follow me. It's just at RETDET, or as all the kids say, Red Det Matt Pitcher. Um, and that it has all kinds of pictures on there too. So if you want to see what I look like when I was undercover, rich me versus dumpster diving me, you can check it out all out. Um,
That's so cool.
there is, and I said I wasn't going to do it, but I will. There is a book coming. Um, we're working on exactly when we'll release it. It'll probably be early next year, is my guess. But I will always be posting that on my Instagram page as well. Like I said, I'm an actor now. I do have several things I'm working on that'll be coming out in the future that I'm kind of excited about. So I will also be posting that on Instagram.
Well, cool. Well, when the book comes out on pre-order, please come back on the show, and
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll help you promote it. Allie, anything you want to promote besides you've got a book out right now that people can get, Bloodstain,
I do. Yes.
and it's available on Amazon, right?
It sure is. I think you can also get it on Barnes and Noble, which is cool.
Okay.
Um, and then my podcast, Allie in the Archives, the third episode airs this week, and I'm super excited. It's about a witch hunt in 1929. I know we all thought those were over in the much earlier in our history, but they weren't. So really cool episode, and I'm excited to share that story with people.
And this is not a typical podcast. I mean, it's more storytelling. She's got music. It's really cool and
Oh,
very
very
unique.
nice. I gotta check
So
that
It's
out.
you'll have
very
to check that out.
Yeah, I'm so proud of it. I love it, and I take huge inspiration from Aaron Mahnke and Grim and Mild podcasts and all of that. So
Yeah, very
Nice.
cool.
huge,
Well,
yeah.
if you want to support me, you can like, subscribe, follow, give me a review, just start hitting a bunch of buttons. You can also get my book, A Murder on Campus, The Professor, the Cop, and North Carolina's Most Notorious Cold Case. It's available on Kindle, Audible, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you can pretty much buy a book. Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for
And
having me. Great time.
yeah,
Yeah, thank
we
you.
hopefully will have you on again.
Sweet. Love it.
All
Very
right.
good.
Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Good night.